Hey, it's Ron McLean. Welcome to Hockey Talk on the Rock.
With Laura and Keith.
It's interesting.
So let's back up a second.
He played absolutely out of his mind.
It made no sense to me.
And now, here are your hosts.
Here we go. We are back. Episode number 70. Hockey Talk on the Rock. Laura, Keith, coming from Salt Spring Island. It's Thursday, April 7th. And we are going to talk league stuff, but also Canucks stuff. Shocking.
And twist of events.
Twist of events, yeah. So last time we talked, it was just before Laura went to see the Canucks in person in Vancouver against St. Louis. And then they played Vegas, and then they played Vegas again. And as we speak, they're up 1-0 against the Arizona Coyotes. So, how'd the week go?
Well, I mean, I think in general it wasn't great, but the win against Vegas last night makes things a little bit happier. I feel like we've known for at least the last week now that the Canucks are not going to make the playoffs, but
Miracles happen.
Miracles could happen. I won't totally write them off, but it's looking less and less likely. And so when I went to that game in Vancouver against the Blues, I was like, they might they might pull this one off, but they're probably gonna lose. And when Thomas scored that shorthanded goal, I was like, yeah, they're not winning this game. But I will say this about the Canucks: it was really nice to see Pettersson score those 2 goals in that game in person, and he has been playing much better of late, which is great to see. I'll come back to Pettersson in a bit here, but that was kind of my takeaway from that St. Louis game. I mean, I'm a big Ryan O'Reilly fan, so I was happy that he scored, and it was fun to see him live. So that was part of the reason why I went to that game. But in general, it was a fun game to be at. They made it close at the end. They didn't quite win, so it was good. Then they played Vegas the first time, and they lost in overtime, but that was a game that Vegas was leading at the beginning, and then Vancouver came back and showed some fight, and then did what they seem to have been doing a lot lately, which is losing in OT.
Yep.
I don't know what the record is with Boudreau in extra time, but it can't be very good.
No, especially lately.
And we'll get to Boudreau in a second, too. Anyway, but the big game was the next game, which was against Vegas, and the Canucks played really well. I think that was their best effort in a while. I also think Vegas looked really bad, so it was like a combination of the two. But it was fun to see them kind of put a damper on Vegas's playoff hopes more than anything. Like that game compared to tonight, I was a lot more excited about watching just because this game feels like it's got no implications. But you never know. Like, as you said, miracles do happen. So maybe they win this one tonight, and Dallas loses, and they're 5 points out. I still, have a hard time believing, but
yeah, I mean, with the first 2 games there, St. Louis and Vegas won. It's a lot of the same story we've been talking about lately, with the slow starts killing them.
Yeah.
It was cool to see them come back against Vegas to go to overtime, especially with that fluke-ass goal off the face-off. That's like a once in every few years you see that happen.
Yeah.
And it felt good for as a Canucks fan.
It happened for the Canucks, not against them.
Yeah, exactly. It was nice to see that happen for them.
Yeah.
Even though, like we talked about, their overtime didn't work out as we had hoped, and it just hasn't been breaking their way in overtime for a while.
Yeah.
And then, miracles happen. They're up 1-0 with the Coyotes, and
Halak's playing tonight, but
yeah, they win them all, they might have a chance, but
they have
it's a tall order.
Yeah, they basically have to be perfect from here on out, and again, hope for some losses for the teams that they're chasing. So it's not looking great, but again, I feel like this Canucks team, like in the last 14 games or whatever, I think they've won 4 games. So they haven't been great in this stretch by any sense of the means. And I do think that, the beginning of the season, the Canucks, they're not as bad as the team that they played at that they were at the beginning of the season. But I also don't think they are as good as they were immediately under Boudreau in those first couple months. And I think that we're kind of maybe seeing more of what the Canucks actually are right now. However, I'm going to talk about something else in a second too. I'm really fascinated about this summer because I feel like it's going to be a real look at what the management is thinking about the direction of this team, and if they choose to, maybe take a step back next year, or if they're going to see like move forward with the core that they have and say that they like the group. I mean, I do think that Demko is an elite level goalie in the league, and when you have him in his prime, it should be possible to build a contender around him, but they do need massive reconstruction on their roster, so it's going to be very interesting to see the touches that the new management puts in place. And the first thing that starts with, which is what we'll get into, is Boudreau. And I think for most Canucks fans, it's been assumed for a long time that he would be back for the second year of his contract, which was optional. And the option goes that if the Canucks don't want him to come back, then they will have to pay him something. Whereas if Boudreau chooses himself not to come back, then he doesn't get that money, but he would be a free agent, and I'm assuming based off of what he's done with the Canucks, he would get hired pretty quickly.
Yeah.
He'll be at the top of quite a few lists. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting situation. This is what I'm going to say. I'll let you talk. I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant. Because, again, he's done such a good job with the Canucks, especially immediately after it felt like he deserved, a chance to run with this team. But I get it from his perspective. If the Canucks aren't willing to extend him past next season, that maybe he's going to look for some more security, basically, somewhere else. And for the Canucks perspective, I mean, the GM did not hire the coach, which is something that we know they like to do. So.
They do. I mean, I will say that I've listened to whoever, probably like Friedman, talking about how when they wanted to bring in Rutherford to replace Benning, he was sick. I think he maybe had COVID or whatever. Like, he was ill at the time, and so it delayed his coming in. But they did call him and say, like, look, we're going to replace Green too, and like Boudreau's our guy, and he gave him the thumbs up.
Yeah, okay.
So at least not from Alvin, but from Rutherford, he got a vote of confidence, and like I think we've talked about in the past, so Rutherford and Boudreau have like a long history going way back to their own playing days. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we talked about mainly back when Green got let go and Boudreau first came in way back. That, like, they were doing so poorly. I think we just agreed that if they can get Pettersson and Besser going for the rest of the year, that's a win. Yeah. And obviously they did a lot better and gave a lot of excitement and hope to the fan base, and Pettersson's playing really well. So I don't know how much you'd want to mess with that, and I feel like ultimately they're going to, extend him a year, 2 years, whatever. I feel like he'll be back. Because if you're not going to bring him back, like, you got to have a pretty damn good backup option.
But maybe what they're doing, too, as an organization, is looking to see who's going to be let go here in the next couple of weeks. I agree with you. I think Boudreau 100% should be back. But I think the fact that so many people are even surprised, like I know Friedman said he was genuinely surprised that they were having this conversation. To me, it's like when there's smoke, there's a bit of fire. And I don't know. Again, I'm a pessimist, so I always think the worst.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and from what Boudreau said, like he said he likes it in Vancouver. So from his side of things, it seems unlikely that he would want to walk away for nothing. Yeah. But the security thing does play a factor, like you say.
I don't think he wants to be a lame duck coach, right? And that's the thing more than anything. And also, he does hold the cards in the sense that before he was kind of out of luck, like he wasn't getting hired, he was getting interviews, but now I think he's pretty confident he's going to get another job. So you do hold a lot more power. But if this is a thing where the ownership is just trying to be cheap, which is something that freaks me out a little bit as a Canucks fan, and they think they're going to just be able to hire someone else for cheaper than Boudreau and get similar results, I think, again, you're out to lunch. And I think he deserves a shot with this group from training camp to see what he can do, and I really hope he's back. So
I think we could put a ball on that. I think we'll see. Time will tell.
Time will tell.
The only thing I'll throw in is, like, we know Aquini's have had a history of trying to be cheap and all that, but ever since they hired Rutherford, you look at how they built out the front office, and that's kind of a massive shift for them. Like, they've certainly had to bust out the checkbook to do it. Yeah. So maybe things are changing for the better a little bit in terms of the penny pinching aspect of things. So we'll see. And then, moving into the summer, I feel like, I don't know, it's really hard to get a gauge on what you think is going to happen. Because like going to the deadline, no one saw them moving out Hamonic and
No,
and
it's
bringing
true.
Dermott, and they did that, and I think everyone's overall pretty happy. Sounds like the team's pretty happy
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Hamonic must not have been the greatest guy in the room, I guess.
No, it sounds like he didn't fit in, but
Yeah, so you never know what they can pull off. Like they can't do any buyouts this year because they can only do 2 at a time, and Vertanen and Holtby are on the books for next season for the buyouts.
Yeah.
So they got to maneuver their roster through trades if they're gonna do anything, and it's tough. Like I don't know. I waver between we're gonna see more fringe moves.
Yeah.
Like moving out a Dickinson and a Pearson to save money.
Yeah.
And then I keep coming back to, well, I don't know, maybe they'll re-sign Miller, but they'll actually move Besser. And like in my head, I'm like, no, it's so simple. 5x5 for Besser, 6x6 for Horvat, and
Yeah.
it's just so easy. But like, it's not.
I know. And again, there's a lot of complicated moves with the Canucks going on. Like the Besser structure definitely puts a damper on a lot of things. And yeah, you got to think about where they see this team long term. The other factor of it is like Rutherford is old. It's not a secret. And I don't know, like, again, how long he wants to be involved with the team for, and how patient he would be at really, again, rebuilding the team. And I don't think rebuilding now is actually the right word for the Canucks. But I will say this, I've said it multiple times, that if the Canucks are ever going to take a step back and be bad, I think next year is the year to do it. And that draft just looks so deep. If they could acquire multiple picks, I would be very happy. I'd be a very happy person. If it was just like, okay, we know it's going to take us a little bit longer, but here we go. But again, you do have to think about the impact that that's going to have on those players that are still on your team. Mainly in this case, it would be Pettersson, Hughes, and Demko, because I think everyone else to some degree is replaceable.
Yeah.
But you have to think about it in those terms too. So we'll see. Again, Alvin is a new GM, so it's hard to predict what he is going to do.
Totally.
We could talk about Beagle.
Oh yeah, I mean, sure.
It's getting into the hockey culture thing. So basically, as everyone's heard of by now, in a 0-0 game between Arizona and Anaheim, Trevor Zegras earlier in the game scored a sweet Michigan goal, and then later on in the game he basically poked the goalie's pad because he thought the puck was loose. It probably was loose. And then he got cross-checked in the back by Jay Beagle, and Troy Terry came in to step up for him, and Beagle kind of went to town on him. I will say this for Jay Beagle, it is not like he is a fighter. Like, realistically, he's had like 2 fights or something in his NHL career, but I think he's basically just pissed off because he plays for a bad team and they were losing 5-0 and just let his temper get the most of him, basically. And Troy Terry is, again, a skill guy, not a fighter, and probably should have held up on him a little bit there, but I don't think it was anything like... I feel like this situation was also kind of blown out of proportion, but, I don't know if you have any strong feelings on it.
Not really. Like, I don't know. Yeah, Terry kind of got in there when a little more aggressively than he should have, and Beagle threw a few more punches probably than he should have.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it was appropriate. I don't think that Beagle should have been suspended. I do think, again, it kind of gets into that whole talk of maybe, and like Solani tweeted this out, right, that they don't have any toughness left on their roster after they traded like Delorier
And
Manson and Getzlaf was out. We can also talk about Getzlaf.
Yeah, I mean, I almost think Subban totally destroying Wallstrom after Wallstrom hit Hughes was like
worse.
Yeah,
I agree. I thought it was, the whole thing was kind of blown out of proportion, but
yeah.
We'll see how that Anaheim team kind of grows together, and if they do, maybe do the whole New York model of in the summer going out and specifically acquiring some toughness because of an event that kind of got blown up, like last year with Tom Wilson, because that's kind of what I thought of immediately with it. But yeah, Ryan Getzlaf, we'll end on this, I guess, is set to retire at the end of the year. He has been a very good Duck. He won the cup with them, and just outside of it, he's also had quite a lot of success with Team Canada at various events, and he's obviously been the captain of the Ducks for a really long time, so it will be an end of an era. Do you think he's a Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think he ticks enough boxes, 1,000-point club.
The 1,000-point thing is the thing for me that I feel like pushes him over, but he doesn't have a lot of personal hardware, basically. But I'd say he is, but it's borderline.
Stanley Cup, gold medals, World Championship, World Junior.
Yeah. It's all
1,000 points. Yeah, I mean, it's tough, though, because, he played through an era with the Ovechkins and the Crosbys where they basically dominated that type of hardware.
I will say, too, I think Perry got the hardware for both of them in that case. But I think he's there, but I think he's going to have to wait a little bit of time for him. Yeah. And
he's had a good career, and I mean, there's a lot of props going to him for all he's done sticking with one team too.
Yeah, I think that's cool to see for sure. And I said to you, I was a little surprised he didn't go somewhere at this deadline, but it sounded like he was probably asked, and you just said it felt kind of wrong. So
yeah,
he wanted to retire a Duck. He's retiring a Duck. There's a quite emotional quote of Corey Perry talking about Ryan Getzlaf that's going around that's pretty cool to hear. And yeah, all the best to Getzlaf. Always respected him as a player the Canucks played against.
For sure. Other than that, league news-wise, I had one quick hot take for you.
Sure.
That I kind of put out there in the Twitter world in case people didn't know we do that, or I do that. I try to. I don't know how it really works. I said I was looking at the Hart Trophy definition.
Yeah.
Player most valuable to their team. And I put it out there, and I'll put it out to you, that 2 of these 3 players will be finalists for the Hart Trophy. And I went with Roman Josi, Johnny Gaudreau, and Kirill Kaprizov, because I really try to think of those teams, what they would be without those players. And I mean, Markstrom gets a lot of love in Calgary too, because he's got 9 shutouts.
Had a ridiculous season there.
And Gaudreau's had a lot of success this year. He's been driving that top line. It's crazy. And so, I mean, I think right now, we were talking earlier, Josi got 3 more points tonight. He's at 87. He's tied for 7th in the league. Not just defense, all players. It's insane what he's doing. And what would Nashville be without him? And it's hard to think they would be in the playoff race at all.
No.
I'd probably give all the first place votes to him.
Yeah.
But I feel confident that those 3 guys, if they don't get into the Hart conversation or as finalists, I feel like they're really underappreciated.
I agree with you. My prediction is that it's going to be Josi, Matthews, and McDavid.
Yeah, probably.
And I just think that Matthews and McDavid are shoo-ins, and they're not going to be left off those, most people's ballots. And I agree with you. I think that in Matthews' case, I think Marner does a lot of the work that gets Matthews' success. And again, it's 2 different sides to this coin too, because scoring goals is a lot harder than getting assists.
Yeah.
But I do think when you watch Toronto play, a lot of the play driving actually comes from Marner, and I think he in some ways is underappreciated. In McDavid's case, I think he is superior in almost every way to Draisaitl that he plays with, and he plays in Edmonton where it's really just those 2 players, but I would be really refreshed if those 3 were the 3 that you said. And I think Johnny Hockey actually deserves a lot more props this season.
If I'm being completely honest with myself as a hockey fan, I would I feel like it'd be more likely to see Matthews, McDavid, and Huberdeau as the finalists. Yeah. And I saw a thing about the last 10 Hart Trophy winners, and 8 of them were first in point scoring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was the exception of Hall when he won.
Yeah.
And McKinnon got screwed.
Yeah.
And there was one more that second in league scoring. So the point totals obviously play a huge factor, and those guys are up there.
Yeah.
They're not the top 3.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
Again.
I agree, but I do think if Josi gets 100 points, I think he has to be just by automatic. He has to be on the ballot.
And how long has it been since a Hart Trophy was a defense? Was it Pronger in 2000?
A long time, yeah, I think so.
That feels overdue, Not saying you should give it to a defense because it's been a long time, but when you have a year like this from a D-man like that, it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy what he's doing. So I would like to see some names, not McDavid or Matthews,
I
in that
agree.
conversation a little more. But
Yeah.
you know,
I think
probably
we
won't
know what
happen.
it's gonna be.
well, I mean, I feel like as soon as you see Matthews hit 60, which he probably will,
Yeah.
then it's going to be like, especially here in Canada, it's
Yeah.
going to be like the media's going to be.
Yeah.
Can you believe he did it? Greatest Leafs goal scorer of all time.
Yeah.
How can he not win the Hart Trophy?
Yeah,
And they're
exactly.
like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
Yeah, he can score. I get it.
Yeah.
So that's just my hot take I want to put out for the.
I like
episode.
it. Again, I wish that I could see it being true, but I can't, unfortunately. But maybe it will.
Maybe
We'll see.
one.
Maybe.
I'm hoping two.
I think
but
one.
maybe one.
I think one for sure. Maybe we'll get two. And yeah, Kaprizov for the Wild is like I think I've said a lot of times about how much I respect Kaprizov.
Yeah, where would they be without him? Like, I mean,
Nowhere
sure,
good.
like he's getting some good support from Zuccarello and stuff,
Yeah.
but it's not like Zuccarello's his
No.
dry saddle.
No, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So, anyways, wrap
Cool.
it up.
Wrap it up.
All right, we'll get back to watching the Canucks game. We probably missed a little bit, and yeah, thanks for listening to Hockey Talk on the Rock, episode number 70.
Woo.